Welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Hey, and welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. This is Eric Stopper. This episode is brought to you by Buy Box Experts. Buy Box Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. We have a team of consultants. Come reach out to us. There's lots and lots of issues having to do with Amazon, whether it's shipping or fulfillment or buy box issues or sales or advertising, doesn't matter. Come and talk to us. We'd love to help. Go to buyboxexperts.com, click on the free analysis button, and you'll be connected with me or a member of my team. Now, this episode will serve as a slight but delightfully significant departure from what we normally do on the Buy Box Experts podcast. My guests usually come on to discuss their tools, their platforms, their businesses, their secret sauce specific to the Amazon platform or e-commerce in general, but we're going to mix things up today. A few months ago, our team had the opportunity to visit the Younique Foundation in Lehi, Utah, an organization that helps women who have undergone childhood sexual abuse, and they help kids and parents become more educated about these kinds of issues. We made blankets. We were invited to do it. It was so simple, but we found out that these blankets were going to be used by the foundation on these amazing retreats that these women take. We learned a little bit about their mission, and they gave us a tour, and they told us about this project called Defend Innocence, which I can only describe as a playbook for parents to protect their children and educate them from abuse. I had no idea how bad these kinds of issues were. But rather than try to explain how bad it is, I decided to reach out to somebody at the foundation to come on the show. And so today, I'm joined by Chris Yadon. He's the executive director of the Younique Foundation. He's previously held leadership positions in the startup tech and nonprofit industries. His expertise centers on heightening awareness to the epidemic of sexual abuse, as well as educating the public on best practices for prevention and the healing services available to survivors. Chris has been featured across several media platforms where he is often requested to contribute as an industry thought leader and expert. Chris, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. So good to be here and so excited you're taking this little detour. It's awesome.
Yeah, this will be a fun but very grave conversation for us to have. You are very much on the executional side of this business, of this foundation. Can you kind of give me the background? I know that Shalane Maxfield was one of the founders of the Younique Foundation. Can you kind of give me the quick and dirty of that story and kind of how it came to be?
Sure. Shalane Maxfield, our board chair and president who you referenced, she and her husband felt a deep desire to help deal with an issue that didn't have a champion. There are lots of people trying to do it, but there wasn't a strong champion in this industry. Derek had come from tech. I had actually worked with him in tech, as you read in my bio. But they both had someone they knew that had been impacted by sexual abuse. And as they were discussing, why doesn't somebody do something about this? They had themselves a deep impression that they needed to do something about it. At this point in their life, they had taken care of their family financially, but felt like they needed to use their finances to do greater good for others. So as our founding board members, founding donors, they got this thing started. That's a little over 5 years ago. I had a deep relationship with them, and I won't go into the details of that because, too boring for
Sure.
a podcast.
No worries.
But needless to say, with that strong relationship, we dug in together and we started making an impact right away.
Now, you mentioned that both of the Maxfields had somebody that they knew impacted by sexual abuse. The stats were the most remarkable thing that I had ever heard. Can you give us kind of a flavor of the stats in this? I don't want to call it an industry,
Yeah,
but this problem.
yeah. So it's an epidemic. I mean, it's rampant, and even the most conservative estimates show how rampant it is. So the most common stat that's quoted is 1 in 4 girls will be sexually abused by age 18 and 1 in 6 boys. With the girl stats, the estimates will range from about 1 in 3 to about 1 in 7. The boys are a little broader. You'll see them anywhere from about 1 in 5 to about 1 in 20. But even if you were talking about 1 in 20, which it's definitely more common than that, think about that. Think about how many kids you know. And if it's 1 in 20 are being sexually, that is horrendous. It's an epidemic. And for various reasons, it's been swept under the rug, so we don't talk about it a lot. But over the last few years, it's starting to emerge, and you're seeing a significant movement that's bringing out of the shadows. Everybody's starting to find out about it, find out how prevalent it is. And, we're at the forefront of helping parents eradicate it.
Now, there's an excellent book by Malcolm Gladwell called The Tipping Point. And he talks in there about connectors, mavens, and salesmen, and how these people will contribute to helping tip a movement in the right direction and sometimes in the wrong direction, right? That he talks about that in his book. And so I'm wondering, have we hit that tipping point? And if we haven't, what's it going to take for us to get to the point where just everybody knows about it and is aware of it?
Yeah, so I would say no, we haven't hit that tipping point, and here's why. What you're seeing right now in this emergence or this awareness that's going on is you're seeing people hearing about it, people acknowledging that they're hearing about it, but we're still not to the point that people are accepting it as reality. Or maybe better said, accepting it enough that they're actually doing something about it. So we're at that early stage of awareness. You can't go on a major news channel or even a local news channel and do more than one scroll through the news feed and not find a story about sexual abuse. That's how much we're talking about it. But people still are saying, well, not in my backyard, right? The NIMBYs of the world, not in my backyard. It's not happening here. It's not happening in my family. It's not happening in my church. It's not happening to my employees. It's not happening, it's happening somewhere else. And the reality is statistics and studies continue to show sexual abuse knows no boundaries. It impacts every socioeconomic group. It impacts every race, every religion. It impacts everywhere. And so we're at that stage where we're starting to talk about it, but we're still going, I'm not sure. Do I really believe this? And that's the next hurdle to climb.
I almost wonder if the problem becomes this, like, I don't know what to do kind of thing, because I was watching an interview a few months ago with Ben Shapiro. And, whatever your opinions on Ben Shapiro, I disagree with about 50% of what the guy says, but he's a smart guy. And so he was asked about how minorities and women will often criticize those outside of their groups for not being sensitive to or helping with certain issues that they're facing. And his response, right, he's this white Jewish male, and his response was essentially, well, like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. I want to help. People want to help, but willingness is not often enough. Sometimes you have to build the roadmap for them. And so, like, what can we do? What can I and our listeners who are probably parents, what can we do? What are some of the first steps?
Yeah. So if you're talking about what can I do in my own home, let me address that. And then maybe I'll address separately, what can I do in my broader community? Because they're very different answers. The key in my own home, it's all about educating myself as a parent. Just a little bit of education can go a long way in reducing the likelihood that your child will either be abused or will abuse another child. And that education is not hard to get at. It's not hard to consume. But what it is a little uncomfortable. It's a little uncomfortable for me as a parent to think about. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit uncomfortable for me as a parent to read about. And so I've got to get over that awkwardness. I've got to get over that initial discomfort as a parent to say, hey, this is important. I'm going to give it a little bit of time. And if I can give it a little bit of time, I don't have to put my child in bubble wrap, but just knowing a couple of basic things will really reduce the likelihood that my child will be abused. So that's the biggie inside the home.
Let's address the broader community in a second, because I do have a question. And also, you've got a captive audience. Educate us.
Yeah.
Give us some of this education that will help us with our kids. I've got a 3-year-old little boy, right? I couldn't bear to have something like this happen. So give it to me straight. What do I need to do? What's my education?
Yeah. So number one is you need to open dialogue with your child around sexual health. And that changes from a very young child up to your 17-year-old that's about to graduate and leave and go to college. You know, with your 3-year-old, what are you talking about right now with your 3-year-old? You're talking about things like privacy and boundaries and them getting to know their physical body, right? You're not talking about the details of sex or consent or anything like that. But you're talking about those basic things around boundary. And maybe I'll go back. You actually are, to some degree, talking about consent when you're talking about boundaries, because you're teaching those early things that, hey, when their little brother or little sister says no or doesn't like something, you respect that, right? You don't keep pushing on it. Or on the other side, that I as a 3-year-old can voice that I don't like something, and that will be respected. So it starts really young. It progresses through the years as we, get into 8, 9, 10 years old. At that stage, you're teaching your kids about the basics of sexual reproduction, because if you're not, they're going to learn it from somewhere else, I guarantee you, and you're not going to like where they learn it from. As they get into teenager, you're talking about dating safety. You're really hammering hard on the topics like consent. And not just getting a verbal yes, but recognizing people's body language and respecting when they say no and honoring the boundaries that they set. So it's a progressive discussion around that sexual health from that young age.
And you've had lots and lots of people come through this program, and lots of folks have been educated, and you've got all these stories and some statistics and probably some self-reporting kind of questionnaires to help understand these things. So is there a single statistical predictor of if this thing in my home happens, like a divorce or a loss of job or a certain amount of kids, is there a predictor that can help me understand that I am at a higher risk of having sexual abuse happen in my household?
Yeah, there's not a single one, but there's a few biggies. Any children with special needs are 3 times more likely to be sexually abused than a child without special needs. So keep that in mind for our parents with special needs. Children that are put in the care of others outside of their immediate parents, and the more often they're put in that care, they're at higher risk. That's something to be aware of. Children that struggle with self-worth, they are at higher risk, because those that perpetrate tend to prey on those that are struggling with self-worth. So there's several biggies like this, and we could probably go through a few more, but those are predictors. But what I would say about sexual abuse is it's broad enough and rampant enough that there's not any single indicator that says, it's not an equation that if my child has this plus this, then this is going to happen.
It's just a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. The whole self-worth idea is a whole discussion and topic and world unto itself. I'm a parent, right? Give it to me straight. What are some of the things that I can do to instill that self-worth in my kids starting at this young age?
Yeah. So the biggie is give your children a voice, right? And this is a hard balance for us as parents. I have 6 kids myself, and so I've been through this at all stages. And it's really hard to do, because you're balancing, hey, I'm teaching them discipline and respect with giving them a voice, right? And often those two things start butting heads, and you have to make choices. But at the end of the day, there's no amount of discipline / correction that is worth squashing the voice out of your child. A child that doesn't have a voice does not have self-worth, right? If they can't stand on their own 2 feet and say, this is what I feel, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I think, and have that be respected in their own home, the chances that they will be able to have that outside of their home are really, really small.
Sure. That makes sense.
So we've got to help our children build their voice. And this is why this matters so much. A big part of reduction of risk is about getting our kids to talk to us early, right? Before the severe abuse happens, there's going to be things that are going on in most cases that are off. And if our children don't feel like they can talk to us as parents, if they don't feel like they have a voice, the chances of them saying, hey, this kid brought up this word to me today, what does that mean? If we can't take that and say, whoa, that's an interesting interaction, I need to intervene. What happens is that goes under silence. And if that kid's trying to perpetrate, it just progresses and progresses and progresses until he actually acts out. And but if we can give our children a voice, it gives us an opportunity to catch it early enough that we can intervene and put protections in place that help keep our kids safe.
Fascinating. I think we do a pretty good job in our household. And the thing that I would encourage everyone who's listening to consider, right, is you've got families, you know what I mean? You've got nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters and all this stuff. Like, take this seriously, right? Like, go and have a conversation with your spouse, your significant other about these kinds of things, and go look up the Younique Foundation website, which we'll put a link in the description of this one so that everybody can get there really easily. So, Chris, talk to me about the broader community, right? What can I do?
Yeah, so we always tell people there's 3 things anybody can do in the broader community. We need people's megaphone. And Eric, you're a perfect example of this right now. You have a megaphone, you're using it. You're giving us a chance to talk about the issue with your megaphone. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
You're my hero today for this topic, right? But everybody has their own megaphone. It may not be a podcast. It may be a social media channel. It may be I have influence in my church community. It may be, hey, I've got influence in my place of employment. Everybody has a megaphone, and using that megaphone is really, really important. Using your influence to say, hey guys, there's an issue here we should pay attention to is really important. So that's always a big one, right?
Okay.
Second one, we always need volunteers. Every nonprofit does. We do. That's no different. And volunteerism gets people engaged in a cause. You're a perfect example. I'm going to keep picking on you.
Yeah, that's where it started, was just making blankets.
It started doing a volunteer project, right? When we get our hands dirty as humans and we start creating things, we naturally perk our interests. And so all good causes have great volunteers behind them. And then the third, whether it's us or some other group in our industry, nonprofits need funding. And the reality behind that funding is, I don't care if you can only give $1 a month, give $1 a month. If you can give more, give more. But just do what you can do, whatever fits for you. Every dollar adds up and makes a difference. So those are the 3 things that we need in the broader community. We need your megaphone, we need your volunteerism, and we need funding. And it's as straightforward as that.
Is it pretty easy to donate? Have you made it stupid simple? Can I text donate to 33111 and it will just take $1 from my Venmo account? How's it work?
Yeah, not quite that easy. I mean, we do require you to go on our website, but it's pretty simple. It's a simple e-commerce transaction that everybody on your podcast is going to be used to.
Okay. And in terms of how the Younique Foundation has been able to kind of symbiotically grow itself, there's a business, the Younique makeup company, right, that has been kind of fueling this growth. Can you tell me a little bit about that dichotomy?
Yeah, so the Maxfields, back to their story at the beginning, they started another for-profit company with the goal that that company, one piece of its mission was going to be to help fund the Younique Foundation. They've done that in a big way in our first 5 years. We wouldn't be where we're at today without it. But the crazy thing that's going on is the need is so great, Eric, and it's growing so fast as people are becoming aware of it, that our demand is even outpacing their amazing contribution. They've contributed more than $20 million over the last 5 years. I mean, just a huge sum of money. And yet we still have more demand than we have the capacity to meet. And so they'll continue to do great things. They're a great partner of ours. We're really grateful for them. But at this point, it's them plus the rest of the world to tackle this issue.
Right. I was reading some stats online that 79% of companies reported increased donor participation rates and 73% raised more money. $5 billion is the approximation of how much money is raised through workplace giving annually, and that more than 49% of nonprofit respondents to these surveys identified workplace giving as a growth strategy for their organization. Yeah. And so this is not just, we're thinking strategy here, trying to spin it for our listeners. This is not just like out of the goodness of your heart. Like, it seems like if you have a charitable organization if your organization is inherently charitable, that you will just do better. Workplace satisfaction seems to go up. Have you guys seen that as well?
Yeah. So it's Sheila McGillivray. I love a quote from her that I think encapsulates this. She said, "Cause marketing is doing good and doing good business at the same time." Right? Doing good and doing good business at the same time. There's market forces that are demanding social good and social impact from corporations. Just to give you one other stat or along those lines, a study done, I believe it was around 5 years ago, showed that of those that were graduating college, it was 70, I believe it was 79. It was somewhere between 75 and 79% of them expected their workplace to be involved in social giving, compared to their parents, which were in the 50s, meaning 50%. So a significant change culturally is happening with the rising generation that's entering the workforce, to where it's not just a nice thing. It's to the point that it's an expectation of our staff, our employees, our customers, that we're involved in social good. But outside of the cause marketing, there's nothing human beings gravitate more to than something bigger than themselves. And when you can give your employer or customer an opportunity to attach to something bigger than yourself, right? Bigger than the bottom line, it always brings about good results. And the side benefit is the bottom line typically goes up. And, but what's problematic is when we do it, when we make it a PR stunt, when we make it a marketing stunt, to increase the bottom line.
It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. Consumers, especially today's consumers, are so savvy, they see right through it. So it has to be genuine. We have to do it for the right reasons. And we have to allow for the side benefit of increasing our bottom line be a side benefit, as opposed to the driver behind why we do it.
Well, with this as a backdrop, right? I'm thinking about all the business owners that listen to this, going, okay, so what do I do, right? What are some of the critical steps that I can take to kind of be this benevolent super company that all these great employees entering the workforce want to work for? And so talk us through this, right? What is the boardroom of everybody listening? What's the conversation? How should they bring it up to everybody? Hey guys, we need to do this. Yeah,
I would say the secret sauce, the magic word behind your question is the word match. Historically, what corporations have done in their giving is they've just said, hey, we'll write a check. XYZ or Acme Corporation is going to write a check. That doesn't work really well, right? Or CEO is going to write a check. That doesn't work really well. What does work well are matching programs. So I'll just give you a couple of examples. We had a major corporation in our area, Adobe, do a volunteer day for us. And for every hour their employees volunteered, corporate matched with a financial contribution. Really cool, right? And then you'll see other matching programs like, hey, every time a customer rounds up to the nearest dollar on their e-commerce transaction, corporate's going to match that same amount, that pocket change, right? So the key word is match. Get your customers involved, get your employees involved, and the corporate strategy is a matching strategy. Don't do it on your own. Don't do it in a box. Don't do it in the boardroom only. Don't isolate yourself. The key is do it with your customers and do it with your employees.
I think that's perfect. And we've made that deliberate effort here. I hope that it's increasing our bottom line and our workplace satisfaction as we would expect to, because that wasn't the focus from what I understand. You know what I mean? So this has all been kind of, there's some high points and there's some low points. The discussion, the conversation, and the topic in general is pretty bleak. Just because, right, we haven't hit the tipping point, and it's a huge issue that affects like 25% of everybody and really 100% of everybody. So can you give me a success story, just a happy, hey, like we were able to make this impact in this person's life and they reported this to us, that can really help empower and encourage those that are listening?
Yeah. I hope you'll allow me to share two. I'll make
Please.
it quick. So the first one I want to share with you is a lady named Martha. We were on one of our participants and some of our staff were on a major show called The Doctors. And Martha's parents were watching this show, The Doctors. And as they're watching this show and learning about our services, their daughter, who had been sexually abused, was really struggling. So they said, hey, Martha, maybe take a look at this program. Martha had already written her suicide note. She already had her plan of how she was going to conduct suicide, but she went to her parents and said, I'll give this program this will be my last shot, my last try. And she decided, as she went through that program, that there was hope for her, that there was healing, that she had a community that cared about her. And within a couple days of her returning home, she tore up her suicide note. That's impact, right? And you put the stats behind that. Child sexual abuse survivors are 5 times more likely to attempt a suicide. So you think, hey, can we help people rip up a few more suicide notes, right? That's impact. So when we're talking about the healing side of what we do, that's impact. Here's one on the prevention side. I love Paige's story. Paige was in high school, doing typical high school thing that we all did. She was at a football game. Mm-hmm. She had this lifelong friend, a boy, and say, hey, let's go grab some food. She said, sure, let's go grab some food. They went and grabbed some food. And as they're pulling out of the drive-thru, the boy said to Paige, hey, I'll give you your food once you make out with me. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that, right? Back to consent. Right? Mm-hmm. we got a consent issue here. And he proceeds to drive behind a school and attempts to assault her. And Paige's parents had done some education work with Paige and had even brought Paige to a community class where our content was taught. And Paige says herself that she remembered what was taught in that moment and was able to fight back. And she had texted one of her other friends, say, I need help, come and get me. And that friend, a bystander, intervened. Paige knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Now, if this boy had assaulted Paige, don't get me wrong, it still wouldn't be Paige's fault. But the fact that Paige's parents were empowered with education and they empowered Paige with some education stopped one more sexual assault that could have gone really, really badly. don't get me wrong, this was still very difficult for Paige.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to minimize that. But the fact that she was able to use her voice, back to what we talked about with your voice, and actually change her story in real time is really powerful.
Right. Can you imagine if it had gone the other way? Man, what a tragedy that would have been. Chris, this has been exceptionally educational. I hope that our listeners have enjoyed and will make a change or continue doing the good things that they're already doing in their life. What is the best way for people to get in touch with the foundation and to get involved? Where do I send them? 2
websites. You mentioned both of these. So youniquefoundation.org, spelled YOUNIQUE foundation.org. That's where all our focus is on our healing services. Then defendinnocence.org. So defend and then innocence.org. That's where all our parent tools are around prevention and education. So those are the 2 places to go. They're both very, very helpful websites. There's more content on there than you'll probably ever want to consume. But you're going to find the right content, hopefully, that meets your needs, whatever those needs are.
Amazing. Guys, as whether you're a client of ours or not, you're just listening kind of in the background. You're an e-commerce person. You're driving the world forward. Let's help some people rip up some more suicide notes. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.